Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined by the Gritty Broman.
What's up, guys?
Today's podcast is with Cole Kramer. He was with me on that Kodiak. He was my guide on my Kodiak Sitka blacktail hunt. He's, a renowned brown bear guide. He's a guide in Alaska. He guides for sheep and goat.
Caribou,
Sitka. Well, I don't think he does any caribou, but he does brown bear. It's kind of his bread and butter, and he's just a stud. He's been on the podcast before. If you follow the Kodiak Island podcast, you'll know all about it. Today, we did a podcast about being a guide. We got a little bit of complaints when we had Ryan Carter on here, and we didn't go into the detail we should have on the guide life. So Cole shares the guide life with us. He also tells us the different hunts that he offers and price points, and not just him, but guides in general. If you've ever dreamt about a sheep hunt or a goat hunt or a bear hunt, like what are some of those costs realistically with someone like Cole, or what's a price range is. It's a good podcast. Cole's always awesome to have on. He's got a wealth of knowledge. We're down here at the Western Hunt Expo for the next few days, by the way. And we're doing podcasts here out of the Mountain Ops space. We got Hush over here. You got Born and Raised over there. We got Leopold and Valkyrie, and you name it. There's Sitka gear. There's just Total Archery Challenge. You can come down here with family, shoot some bows. It's cool. It's between now and Sunday. So it ends on Sunday. Come on down here. Check it out. If you haven't come yet and you want to get tickets, you can go to the Hunt Expo. I think it's huntexpo.com.
Something like that. They also have an app you can download.
Yep, get the app, Hunt Expo app. And when you buy your tickets, type in the code MTNOPS, and you'll get $10 off your ticket. So come and hello, Tanis. And that was Tanis Barkman, for those watching, the booty shot. We're showing our Gritty film Friday night. That's tomorrow night. Super stoked about that. Tickets are sold out, so can't come to that. But if you are around for the expo itself, come on down. And
we've got hats and we've got shirts, folks.
We do. We have some Gritty hats and shirts, which is new. Haven't had those in a few years.
I looked at your square reader from the last time we sold them. 2016 was the last time you sold a hat.
Yeah, so it's been a while, I'm not really into the merch that much. So this could be a limited time only. No guarantees we'll have more.
No, we're gonna get better at it. We're gonna start selling stuff.
We're gonna try. But yeah, come on down, check out the show, and I hope you enjoy this show with Cole Kramer. He's kicking around here, as is Dustin Rowe. Dustin was my guide in BC for moose. He's on the film. But there's just cool people everywhere throughout here. So come on down to the Hunt Expo and check it out. Enjoy the show with Cole. And as always, stay gritty.
Stay gritty.
Welcome to the Gritty Podcast, Cole.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Folks, I am your guest, your host, Brian Call. And I am with my guest, Cole Kramer.
You're on my podcast.
You see how good
today.
I've been doing, like over 400 shows, and I got
Wow.
it down smooth.
Way to go.
See that? Such a pro.
Way smoother than our ones on Kodiak, that's for sure.
I did watch a video of Joe Rogan do his first MMA announcement.
Oh, really?
He looks like he's 18 years old, like super young. And I think it was on Instagram this morning?
Yeah, it's a repost from Callan.
Huh.
Ryan Callahan posted it. Anyway, it was pretty funny. Yeah.
That could be you.
I think I started a little old, and I'm still doing it.
Okay,
As
that's
old.
fine.
But there's a lot of gray here that wasn't here 4 or 5 years ago, for sure.
Every year I get grayer as every hunt goes on.
More and more grown.
But I am like fine wine or whiskey aging in a barrel.
Exactly.
My leather-bound books get more oils as I turn each page.
Dusty, yet refined.
That's right.
How do you like my boom?
Oh, the old less than one Yeti mug.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Wild Sheep Foundation.
Yep, that was a great time with the old Wild Sheep Foundation. Less than one banquet.
That's right. So Cole Kramer is with me. He is a renowned guide. Renowned? You like that word?
It's a little
Renowned.
much once again. I mean, I'd really
He's
get
a
to sell it for the listeners.
Prestigious, renowned guide from Kodiak, Alaska. And we hunted before. If you haven't seen those podcasts, go back and check them out. So, Cole, today you just completed your eighth trade show. Is that right?
No, it was. I think I did Reno, Dallas, Houston, and then back to Reno for Sheep Show, and then now we're here. So this is the fifth one for Western Hunting Expo, and then I have to go to Pope and Young in April.
Which show is your favorite?
I'd say the Sheep Show is a really good show. I mean, we go there. I help. I want to support the Sheep Show. They do great things. Conservationally speaking, they put millions and millions of dollars. I can't remember what the number Gray said the other night at the banquet, but I mean, there's millions of dollars a year back in putting sheep back on the mountain and other types of projects that they're doing. It's just a great population of people that show up there. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I'm really good at like business strategery, like with my booths, because like most of the shows I don't even have a booth. And they're helping out other guys, some of the other guys I work with and outfit with. And Sheep Show, I go there and have a booth to help support them because I think they do great things. Yeah. And I probably sell the least amount of things, and that's where I choose to have my booth. So that's a great strategy. But realistically, at the end of the day, when I look at the numbers and go back, I'm like, oh, I guess I did sell a bunch of stuff there. Yeah. So it is a great, great show. It doesn't, it's getting bigger and bigger. Yeah. There's a ton of people that are going through there now. It's
a pretty laid back show. When you say sell stuff, it's not hats and t-shirts. It's not the Cole Kramer brand. It's hunts.
Yes, correct. We're doing Sitka black-tailed deer, mountain goats, brown bear. I also have a booking agency selling other hunts around the world of other outfitters that I've been with.
Because that's the subject today. I want to get the cliff notes of what you offer, all the hunts you offer, some price ranges, and then some other things about Kodiak Island specifically that I want to touch on briefly. Real quick, we'll hammer through it. But before that, how did guiding become what it is today? Do you know, Cole? This is one of those questions where I ask you a question, but I already know the answer and I have it prepared. Right. You like those.
Why don't we go ahead and jump to the answer that you've already got? Obviously, when you think way, way, way back in the day of when this all first started, some of these were just huge expeditions, museum expeditions, because these were people living in Alaska that hunted for food, right? And indoor population control of certain things. And, bears were a nuisance, so they're just killing bears, and then word comes back, oh man, there's big bears up there in Alaska, or you should see these moose and all this stuff. So these stories come around, and then you would get these, let's just say museums or Smithsonian or whatever it may be, expeditions that would happen. And then once that would come to play, then the commercial end of it started moving about and trying to get people to come up there, but it wasn't like it is today where you would just do like a week-long trip up in Alaska. Right. It was a full-blown, month-long hunt when you were up there.
You're talking exploratory expeditions, basically, the sort of stuff that breaking ground in new frontiers. Yeah. Not that it wasn't human civilization there, but not civilization that European people were not aware of.
Right. Yeah, and that's like, when you get into like the 1900s and, actually, or mid-1900s, let's just say, of commercial hunting and where it was, that's when, like on Kodiak at least, that's when you started seeing more of like, let's just say the guides and outfitters being like, hey, these bears do have a worth to them. These animals do have a worth throughout Alaska, meaning like we just can't go out and shoot them up and not actually think about what we're doing here. We want to have a healthy population.
Right. And it's so funny because in today's world, people tend to take for granted that they're of value. Right. Oh, we got to protect bears and elk, and we can't overhunt them, and we got to be concerned. Right. No, back then, there were actually proponents like, if we could get rid of all the bears, that'd be great.
Right.
Because we don't need them on the landscape.
On Kodiak, there was ranching going on, because there's lots of grass there. So they had ranchers that just wanted to shoot up every bear that moved. It was the hunters that stepped up that said, no, we can't do this. This is the home of the bears, okay?
Yeah.
It wasn't bear viewing back then like it is today. And so hunters were the ones who stepped up and says, listen, we can't just shoot all these bears. It was like some of the major outfitters, Pinnell and Towson and other very renowned outfitters that were there long before them even, that were standing up saying, we need to protect this, okay? We want these to be around. So they were the ones pushing the limits towards the fish and game or the government back then.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot going on. The wolves being eradicated or extirpated from the lower 48.
Sure.
Coyotes, a lot of the pressure there. Much of that was driven by ranching, actually, not by hunters. A lot of people think those species were overhunted. And it really wasn't even hunters in terms of the buffalo or the antelope. It was market hunting, which again was driven by business because it was unregulated. Imagine if all the land west of Colorado was free for you to take from, and there were no rules around, let's say, buffalo, right? And you got $100, let's say, per buffalo hide.
Sure.
Then you just would go out and shoot buffalo and bring it back, and there's a viable living for you and your family.
Sure. And they didn't have Facebook or Instagram back then or the Google.
Right.
And they didn't know that, this other state that is ridden by horses to get up there, they've over harvested this year. Let's go ahead and not take out these other 500 buffalo here.
Yeah.
They didn't know. This is a never ending supply.
And again, I don't think that they necessarily, that in the consciousness of the public at that time, wildlife wasn't necessarily viewed as important.
Right.
As I've read this book right here, The Wilderness Warrior, about Theodore Roosevelt, you learn that during that time in modern society, they're like, birds are nice, pretty birds are nice, and deer are nice, but there wasn't this deep concern for them. It was more around progress.
Right.
Cities, roads.
It was building back then.
It was building. It was and ranching, and they envisioned all of this domesticated world, not realizing that nature in itself, being itself, it was of value. And so, it's like if all the grizzly died, a large part of our country did not care.
Sure.
I have these notes right here. By the mid-1800s, the world's hunting fraternity had learned that British Columbia harbored one of North America's most magnificent big game populations. Local hunters started guiding services to meet the demand for quality big game hunts. Guiding licenses were first issued in 1913, and guiding territories were established in the late 1940s. So right around the time you're describing, like, hey, we might need to manage some of this and put some rules in place. In 1961, legislation provided guide outfitters with the exclusive rights to guide non-resident big game hunters in a specific area. This exclusivity of the guide outfitter certificate became the foundation of the guide outfitting industry in British Columbia. The certificate constitutes property and is part of the estate of a guide outfitter. Hunting and democracy have been intertwined since the earliest days of colonial America. Many settlers loathed the British system, in which all game was considered the property of the crown or private owners, and only the wealthy were permitted to hunt. So by 1623, the Plymouth colony, the Pilgrims, right? The Puritans, the Plymouth colony issued a mandate that waterfowling, fishing, and hunting were free to everyone. The Pilgrims were freedom seekers in every respect. So from the outset, as this country became populated, those original peoples, they approached wild game as everybody's, not just a privilege for the rich, and saw its value, because coming from where they're from, they couldn't hunt. It was against the law.
Sure. And a lot of those people were just trying to survive back then, right? Yeah. And they couldn't go out. And if they did go out and kill something on, the King's Land or whatever, that didn't go so well for him.
Right.
And like I said, I don't have all the right.
So how does this work in terms of Alaska, similarly to British Columbia? You have a license to guide. Tell me how that works.
Well, when you first, let's just say my journey as wanting to be a guide, if I can tell you that story. So basically, when you first start off, you are what's called like an apprentice or a packer, let's just say, or a wrangler it may be, and you are strictly there learning, helping, doing a lot of the physical work, packing, meat out, supplies, everything like that. Well, that lasts, I believe it's 2 seasons. And I used to know all these to the exact day, but I'm not sure if it's like 30 days a year or 60 days a year now.
Right.
But basically for 2 seasons, okay? Yep. And once you get signed off from an outfitter, the outfitter feels like you are indeed capable of being an assistant guide, then they will sign off, and you have to get some background checks done.
And then once you're an assistant guide, what happens?
Once you're an assistant, once they give your assistant guide license, you are then able to guide hunters for the outfitter, but only in his area, and only if he is in the area or the adjoining area on whichever side of it. Okay. And also, you are not allowed to contract hunts. You're not allowed to accept money from someone to just take them hunting. That is what's called a registered guide outfitter. Okay. Backing up, an assistant guide has that license for 3 years in Alaska. Okay. And has to have so many hunters per year. Okay. And once you do have the time and hunters over the 3 years, and the outfitter feels that you are indeed capable of being a registered guide outfitter, and you have the knowledge and whatnot, then he signs off. You submit paper to the state. If the state likes what they're seeing, then you are now eligible to become a registered guide. Then at that point, you have to sign up for a testing date. Okay. So you go there and you take an exam. Now I took mine, I don't remember if it was 2005, 6. It was it used to just be a multiple choice question. Okay. Backing up, it used to be a bunch of questions, and you would sit before a panel of judges. They could make up all sorts of questions, and they didn't have to stick to a guideline. And a lot of guys apparently didn't exactly pass a whole lot, let's just say, and they got offended. So then they went to the whole multiple choice. Okay. And that, I would say that if you ask any of the legit old time guides and or just any of the guide outfitters now, what the issues are up in Alaska is we have a lot of guides up there, and in the multiple choice days, I would say that's when we got a lot of guides in that made it through, because with just a single multiple choice question, you could imagine study guides. There's all sorts of stuff that came out that made it easier. The year I took it, they revamped the whole test. What happened was it turned it into, you still have like a multiple choice question you take, a few hundred questions. And then you sit before 2 or 3 different panels of judges. The judges have to stick to a criteria, but they ask you all sorts of questions of how to judge animals, situations, how you sex animals, like in terms of like goats that have horns that are the same, basically, on Billy or Danny. A bear, how do you sex a bear? How do you trophy judge a bear? All sorts of different questions. Also, then you have to show them how you would score horns or antlers or skulls, whatnot for them, just so you have a basic knowledge. Because, your hunters come and they may want to kind of know what that is. You may have to tell them. Right.
So when you pass that, what happens next?
Well, there's still more. Okay, I don't want to make it sound easy. You have to submit a video, of which I was a huge proponent of, showing a video that you do actually indeed know how to skin an animal, flesh, salt, dry the animals, do all the necessary needs to help prep and take care of your hunters. Okay. Yes, and preserve your hunter's animal. Okay, meat, everything. So once you've done all that, then and you pass. Oh, there's one more I forgot. Then you have to also take an area exam showing that you actually know your area that you're going to hunt in. Let's just say Unit 8 is mine that I hunt in, meaning Kodiak Island. Had to know all the bays around the island. Had to know all the main river systems, all the mountains, all the names of the lakes, all of that.
And this is after 2 years.
This is 5 years.
Right, 2 years doing the packing, and then 3
2
years
years doing the packing,
as an
3 years
assistant.
as an assistant guide.
5 years. Then you take all these tests, prove all your stuff, do the videos, and so on, and then
Long and short of it, 5 years to become a registered guide, minimum.
okay, and then
At that point, you are now able to contract hunters. Okay, you have to get like your business license. You have to have a certain amount of insurance.
how does that compare to British Columbia?
I think they just give it away over there. I don't know. I'm just kidding. No, it is much easier to
We're
get.
better in America.
Of course. We need to build a wall in between us, I'm just kidding. No, the difference is I think the BC guides just have to getting your license. I'm not sure outfitter's license, but to just getting your let's just say an assistant guide license is much easier there. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean they don't require all the hoops that we have to jump through. And that's probably a great question for some of the BC guys. I can't answer all these questions.
Then how do you're licensed now. You're registered.
Yeah.
How do you, you can't just waltz into any place you want to hunt?
No, you can have 3 outfitter areas. You can apply for 3 areas to hunt in. So I have 3 areas, okay? And there's all sorts of different types of lands in Alaska. I mainly hunt like state, federal refuge, native lands, but there's parks, there's other types of lands.
So you submit that to the state.
Correct. You have
and
to
they
have
regulate
you
it?
You have to be able to go in those lands, right? So they have to approve your access before you can start taking people into those lands.
Can you subcontract
No,
hunts?
not in Alaska.
But you can in BC.
I am not sure what they can do there. I cannot answer those questions for them.
Okay.
In Alaska, it is against the law to subcontract.
Okay. Because I know, Dustin would get a tag from another outfitter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you've got BC, Alberta, Yukon, Northwest Territory, all this stuff.
So different.
It's so different.
Yeah.
And
But Dustin just purchased his area. Did you purchase your area?
No.
Does it not work
so
like
Canadian areas versus Alaska areas. It's a like state land. You just have to get approval to go on their lands, submit what they need, do the paperwork that they need, and they will allow you as long as so when you are taking your guide test, they have what's called unit tests. So I've taken 3 or 4 different unit tests, and I don't mean guide area unit tests.
Right.
So there's 26 units in the state. So you can't just go anywhere. You have to have time in those areas to then submit to take the test for that area. I just can't say, I want to go up to the Brooks Range right now because I've never been in the Brooks Range personally. Okay. I can't just open up a guide shop up in the Brooks Range. I have to have time in that area, then go take that unit exam. Even though right now I have all of my areas that I can guide in, I'm a registered guide outfitter, whatever. A couple more years, I'll be a master guide. Basically, I just can't go buy an operation up in the Brooks Range and start going. I have to have time in those areas. Okay. And there are other ways besides guiding. I think you can. I have to look at the regulations, but if you spent time in the area guiding, trapping, trapping and doing this, there are other ways, I believe. Okay. So I just don't have all the regs in front of you. That's the most nerve-wracking thing is going through our regs to make sure that we follow every step of the way.
You're right.
And go ahead.
Okay. So that kind of paints a picture for me. And now,
super confusing picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite the process. But now you have 3 areas that you hunt on. Now, those areas, what do you offer? What does Cole Kramer do each year?
Kramer's Kodiak Guide Service. I hunt on state land and then some native land. Okay, basically private property is what. Native land is.
Yep.
And so I have to have paperwork done with each one of those areas. And so once I do all the appropriate steps with them, then I'm offering mountain goats, Sitka black-tailed deer, and some bear. Now, when it comes to some of the other bears, if a guy says, "Listen, I want to do the top of the top brown bear hunt that I could possibly do," well, then I have 2 different outfitters that I've worked with for a very long time. One of them is 16, 17 years. Okay. And so then at that point, I just say, listen, if you want the biggest bear in you want to go do that, and that's on National Wildlife Refuge, or also like on some native land as well. Then at that point, we contact this outfitter that I've worked with and say, hey, he's interested in hunting with you. And then I set them up with them. Okay. And that's where I have a booking agency to where I help out some of the outfitters that I'm with, because frankly, some of them don't want to show up to the shows and they don't want to deal with customers. And so they are there in the field. I'm there in the field, but they really don't want to do this whole show circuit. So that's where I come into play, with Adventure Mountain Hunts. That is basically a booking agency that it can customize the trips for them and help it lay it out where they want to go. There's multiple outfitters around the world that I've worked with, that I've been there, hunted with, and these are my relationships that I have built at getting to know them at the shows, and sending clients in knowing that they are good outfitters. And so that is also one of my businesses that I have as well.
Okay. And then the hunts that you do, you've got brown bear, mountain goat, Sitka black-tailed deer. Okay. Those three.
Those are the main ones. Yeah, I do a sheep hunt or two a year. I used to do a lot more, but only one or two a year now.
Let's put bear. Let's tackle bear real quick. Okay. There's no inexpensive way to do a bear hunt as a non-resident.
Well, the most inexpensive way is if you have a relative up there. That's a next of kin hunt, and then you can go if you've got that. Next of kin.
Right.
Whatever all that is, mother, father, sister, brother, grandma, grandpa, whatever it is, you can go with them.
Okay.
If they live up there.
For those of us who don't have that, which is the majority.
Yes. Then, here's the deal. There's multiple outfitters out there, right? From, as low as, let's just say, who knows, $10,000 on up to $40,000, of types of brown bear hunts that are offered. Now, the big question is, well, what kind of land are you on? What are you operating on? State land, native land, refuge land?
What is the potential?
Success
and
then there's
ratio.
Great outfitters in all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's not just like, I'm going to put my nose up in there and say, only the refuge people are the best. It's just, certain areas, as you could imagine. So state land, there can be multiple outfitters in the area. Okay.
Right.
Native land, typically there's only one or two, because there's a lot of times there's like a contract or something you would do with them, or they may only just allow one or two outfitters in the area. And then refuge, typically, if it's and I'm kind of butchering my words here because we're cruising through, but there's the concession areas that may be exclusive use areas.
Right.
So like the brown bear areas that I take my clients that are booking through my agency. Those are all done on private concessions, or what that means is we are the exclusive commercial operator in that area. No other guided hunters can be in that area. Residents can go. Residents are allowed to go, meaning if they if it's a draw area, they can go there. But native land is a little different because they have to purchase a permit potentially to be there.
Yeah,
there's a lot to all this.
But you're dealing with quite an expensive endeavor as a non-resident to come up there and do a brown bear hunt.
Yes.
And so somewhere between the steal of a lifetime at $10,000 and something around 40,000. In that window. It's a big window, Cole.
Correct. And you go on some of those cheaper hunts and you may end up going a few times. Let's just say that. And maybe your experience is not going to be the best. And you could go on hunts where you spend a lot of money and it just doesn't work out your way. These are not guaranteed hunts. It's against the law to guarantee hunts. Guarantee an animal in Alaska.
Right.
And so this is no guarantee just because you are paying for a hunt and an adventure in Alaska. Okay.
Yep.
There's no guarantee that it's not going to be foggy, rainy, stormy the whole time. There's no guarantee that you're going to get your butt in shape and be able to get up the mountain. No guarantee your rifle's going to work correctly.
Right.
All the above.
So it's a pretty big nut to crack for a lot of middle class people.
Sure. I've had guys. One of the biggest brown bears ever killed with a bow. My hunter, he passed away just 2 years ago. Jim Gabrick he was from Wisconsin. He was a prime example. He worked in a junkyard, and he was a single guy. Worked in a junkyard. He worked there so long that there was an old house in the middle of the junkyard, and he could live there for free. And he literally took all of his money and used it on hunting. And I believe he did harvest the North American 29 with his bow, working at a junkyard. And he was an employee, not the owner.
Yeah.
And so he saved his money.
It's where he wanted to
It's where you
money.
prioritize. People,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got guys all the time that say, wow, it seems so expensive. It's ridiculous. Well, yeah, you're also driving an $80,000 or $60,000 truck.
Right.
And you have a boat.
With a toy hauler and a boat and a this.
And you have this, XYZ. Okay, well, some guys don't. Some guys drive an old rusty beat-up truck.
And go hunt bears with a bow.
I don't have very many. I was telling someone the other day, like, I don't have, how my mind works, I don't have a whole lot of assets in terms of, like, four-wheelers and boats.
I've been to your place.
Yeah. I mean, my truck's a decent truck, no doubt, but I also got it for a very good deal.
Yeah.
I've had 4 vehicles my entire life.
I like your
that
shop.
Well, right. And guess what? That took a long – I'm 35 years old.
Yeah.
I bought it at 34. Houses are very expensive there. And, it took a long time for me to be able to afford a house in Kodiak, Alaska on a guide wage, okay?
Yeah.
But I have no problem how my mind works. If you said, hey, there's a really nice Polaris Razor over here for $10,000. It's a good one. You need one. I'm like, oh, dang. But then you say, hey, did you hear there's a group going to Azerbaijan next year and it's $10,000? Are you serious? Let's do this. Like my mind that like,
right.
I will save my tip money, any money I can, and I will go spend that on an adventure. No doubt about it. And I'll set aside my tip money. I'll do whatever I have to make tips for the guides, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever I got to do to make this adventure be a great adventure, because later on in life, I want to be able to sit down with my kids, whoever, loved ones and family, and just be able to tell them about these adventures, because in the end, who cared about the stupid trucks you bought and this and that and the other? I realize there's business expenses that you have to do, but that's not how my mind works. I don't care about some of those things.
I'm wired that way too. Absolutely wired that way too. Let's talk about goat hunting. That's something I'm kind of pursuing with you.
Sure.
How does that work?
The poor man's sheep hunt. And that's what that is. It is, if you say, man, I really want to go sheep hunting. Well, guess what? We have a solution. You can go goat hunting because it's substantially cheaper, and it is an amazing adventure. You've got guys that are probably as low as $7,500, and you get guys that I've heard of some BC outfitters up to $25,000 now. Mine are at $10,500, and I feel like that's priced really accordingly. There's guys that are more expensive than me, but my goat hunting is a draw. And so with fairly low odds, but realistically, there's no point system in Alaska. You don't have to have points, so you can draw the first time. I've had several people draw the first time. Then I've got guys that have been there about 4 or 5 years. And I don't require a deposit to put in. You have to have like a contract that you're going with me to put in a written agreement. And then we put them in the draw by December 15th, and then we find out typically February 15th, which is just a few days away.
And Adam Foss drew that.
Yep, Adam
How
Foss.
many times did he put in?
Once.
Lee and Tiffany drew it.
Lee and Tiffany drew it, and they put in once. Yeah, there's several people I've guided that have only put in one time, and they drew. And like I say, you got guys that take a while for whatever reason, But the thing I love about my hunt is we have a lot of goats, and I try to give people what I call like a proper adventure. When you're hunting goats, I like to go backpack, and get into the further accessed areas to where we're not going to have issues with other hunters. I'll leave some of the closer goats to some of their other residents, or maybe other guides that don't want to work that hard, and I'll just cruise on past, because most of my hunters want an adventure. They really want to have a great experience. I've been blessed to get into a pretty good group of hunters, and most people understand what they're getting into when they go hunting with me. At least I feel. Sitka did a video some years back, Beyond the Layers, and it paints a pretty good picture of a goat hunt on Kodiak, of how it can be beautiful weather, and it kind of tells about how we're backpacking and seeing some of our tents we're setting up and whatnot. But then it can also be really crappy weather. It can turn really snotty pretty quick. And no one ever comes off these hunts saying, oh, that was easy, whatever. I mean, you're not trying to punish people. You're just trying to give them an enjoyable experience.
Right. Well, it is that adventure that it's really all about. I mean, that's a big part of it. It's so hard to experience a sheep hunt with its cost.
Sure.
But with a goat, you can be right there.
Like with me, I can hunt Dall sheep in Alaska because I'm a resident. I've been blessed to harvest 2 sheep now. But when it comes to like international hunting, there's international sheep hunting and there's ibex hunting, which is a goat.
Yeah.
Well, the ibexes are typically much more affordable. And so I've been blessed to go on some ibex hunting around the world, have done a sheep hunt, but the sheep are pretty expensive. But ibex hunting is a great solution for people to be able to go and hunt. If you have a group of guys that want to go, you can get some of those like Azerbaijan tur prices down to some 7,000 or 8,000. You can go to Spain and hunt some of those, and they could be 10 to 12,000. There's and it goes on up, of course, but there's mid-Asian ibex for 7,500 to 9,500. So those are there. It's
in
just
that
not
ballpark.
everyone, yeah. So those, not everyone wants to go out. Those I can justify by saving my money over time as long as my bills are paid for. I don't have any kids. I'm not married. I can go do that stuff.
Yeah.
As long as I'm taking care of what I need to. I understand if you're a married man and
that's
you
a
got
lot
kids
different than 30, 40, 50,000 for
sure.
a sheep.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of my clients the other day, through my booking agency, we booked him a high Altai Argali hunt, at $150,000. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But, guess what? These people also work very, very hard for their living, and they're able to go do that, and, some are really good dudes. It's all relative.
And as a non-resident, I can't go to Kodiak and hunt goat.
You have to have a guide for mountain goats, Dall sheep, brown bear / grizzly.
Okay.
The other animals, you don't have to have a guide.
Okay. So I have to have a guide when I go to Kodiak. I shouldn't say you as a non-resident, you can't do it. You can't do it DIY.
For a brown bear on Kodiak.
Or a goat. Yeah. So you got to have a guide. So you're right around 10.5. And it's a draw, and it can take some time. You could draw it the first time.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. You have big goats on Kodiak.
We've got some really big body goats. Yeah, I would say I've heard a lot of the taxidermists tell me, because that's really the only place I've hunted goats. I saw some goats in BC when I was there, and they look pretty big too. But we have so much grass and vegetation on Kodiak.
Big old goats.
Yeah, and alders are eating anything. Goats eat anything.
Yeah, they do.
And there's grass top to bottom. It's not like the Chugach or like some of these other places that have a lot more rock or like down here, like sagebrush and just junk they're eating and whatever they can. Our goats are awesome tasting too. Great meat.
The next one that you do is Sitka Blacktail.
Correct.
Which I did with you this year. We have a film that'll come out in a few months that is pretty sick.
I hope it is. Don't screw this up.
It is so legit. But our friend Adam Foss helped put it together, film it. So, with a talent like that, Adam, with Adam's talent, Cole, it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah, you guys better not edit it wrong, because
something
I've seen a lot of Adam's stuff, and it's really good, so don't screw it up.
Yeah. So, no, seriously, it was a killer hunt. We did a whole podcast series on it. So this is the area where you don't have to hire a guide to do a Kodiak Sitka Blacktail hunt.
Yep.
So that one is basically over the counter.
Sure.
You can go buy your tag.
Sure.
And get yourself out there and hunt blacktail.
Sure. Yep.
What's the benefit of going with you, and what does that cost?
It just really all depends on the experience you want. Do you want to rent, or maybe you have all your camp? Maybe you feel secure enough, safe enough that you have good backcountry travel, safety, all the above to do your own drop camp. Or maybe you know someone that does, and you feel confident enough going with them. Yeah, you can just call one of the air charter services, and there's multiple places around the island. I would say, you're not supposed to ask like the air charter service, because they are not, technically it's called guiding when they tell you where to go, even though they're not guiding you. If they're telling you where to go, they're not supposed to do that. Okay. They can go drop you off. It's an air taxi service. Okay. They're dropping you off.
Right.
You can call maybe Fish and Game, talk to maybe one of the local biologists, ask them, hey, where's a great place to go hunting, in terms of that. Maybe they really can't even tell you, but in terms of they could tell you, hey, these are great populations here, X, Y, and Z. hunters have had great success here.
Right.
You know,
right.
There's all a billion forums, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like calling just an air charter service, I mean, technically they're not supposed to.
Right.
Just tell you, okay?
So you could do your own research.
Correct.
Call around.
Yes. And truth be told, Kodiak, like on a great year, and you hit the weather right, and you get dropped off somewhere, I mean, you can have a really, really great time. Sitka blacktail hunting is probably one of the most stress-free hunt I've ever gone that I ever go on. So much fun. Typically a lot of deer running around. You know, you got to put in your effort, of course, but you can literally I could throw a dart at the board, hit wherever, get dropped off, and probably have a great hunt.
Right.
I mean,
right.
is there some areas that are better than others? Maybe. I mean, it's like, oh, did you see where Cole killed that big buck? That's where I want to go. And it's like, well,
there's big.
I've hunted deer all over the island and done well. It's a matter of I basically live there, so I know where to go. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's my backyard, right? So if you spent as much time as I did in any one of these areas, guess what? You're going to get really good too, and you're going to find some really good bucks. Yeah. And I see a lot of residents or non-residents that come up, maybe not every year,
2-3
but a few times, and they know where they want to go. They hone it,
you
know. And if they have a good time in an area, they're going to go back there, and they already know right where they left off, and they're going to keep hunting.
How does it? Like with you, people get the location, the experience with that location. They get, all your knowledge. But then, I mean, if you really want a big Sitka blacktail, I found that was a little harder to judge. Mm-hmm. You know, because you're talking about the difference between big and small is like 10 inches.
Right. And a lot of hunters, what I see is I've had some hunters that really, and I think maybe we spoke about this before one of the other ones, but I've had definitely a lot of hunters that maybe are looking for a very large blacktail. Mm-hmm. And we get out there and these blacktail, their horns fit their bodies really well. And I feel like once you see, because the guys will say, what's Boone and Crockett? 108. Okay, well, man, that seems really small. Okay, well, you get out there and you see 100-inch deer, upper 90s. These guys, most of them are like, whoa, that's a big buck. Yeah. And this is a guy who's used to hunting 150, 170-inch type of whitetail. That's what they're going for. And so they see a blacktail that's 100 inches, and they're thinking it's massive.
Right.
But it fits the body very well.
Yeah.
And most of my guys, I have more of an issue trying to hold them off from shooting than the other way around.
Yeah.
Not trying to get them to shoot a buck. It's always holding them off of shooting a buck.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
there were so many I liked. I'm like, how about we pull the trigger on that one? You're like,
right. And it's like, well, I mean, that's a nice buck, but he's, if you're, because truth be told, if you're coming with me and my hunts are 10,500, and I go down if we have like a group size, it does chip down the price. But if you're just doing a one-on-one and I'm in my, extremely hard to get to areas and lots of logistics getting into it, it takes a lot of money. And truth be told, if you went to go do the same thing, guess what? You're going to be in it a lot of money.
Right.
And so it's just one of those things where when you're with me, I want you to walk away with being like, whoa, I can see how that really paid off in terms of, I understand that takes a lot of time and effort,
the time,
logistics,
the flights, the
and
gear
also,
that's out there available to you, the stay,
and
getting it out of the backcountry once you put these animals down.
My safety knowledge, everything. So what happens when you run into a bear? What happens when you have a bear in your camp at night? Mm-hmm. Do you know how many times that I have heard of residents or sorry, I shouldn't say residents, non-guided hunters leaving deer, shooting too many deer maybe in one spot, leaving them, coming back for the meat later on, and guess what? Guess who's waiting there? A bear.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever in 16 years had that experience where a bear was there on a kill waiting. Because we've dealt with it fast. The people that I learned from, we've dealt with things fast, and we get them out.
You don't waste time.
We know, even if a guy has 3 tags, we know you're not shooting all 3 deer right now. We have to responsibly take care of this meat. At the end of the day, though, when a guy spend that kind of money with me, I wouldn't feel right having them shoot a really small buck. And so I am pretty picky on what they're harvesting. At the end of it, like sometimes, especially when I have locals, elderly in town that maybe need meat, that's one thing.
Yeah.
To harvest some younger deer and take them in if we have extra tags. But otherwise, we're only hunting old, mature bucks.
Yeah. It's crazy too because the native foxes there are so like fascinating, and so they're like a prize in and of themselves, you know. And you add that to the blacktail hunt, and it's just pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, to me, going with you and having all the services, logistics, all that stuff, because when someone hears 10.5, they really, to figure out what they're paying you, they got to subtract what they're going to pay on their own already. Right. So after they've paid for all of these things, their gear, everything, the shipping, the whatever they've done to get set up logistically, and then to get dropped and to get out there, all of that, and then to get picked up, all of that, you kind of have to figure that out and then go, okay, what's the additional cost of having Cole Kramer or someone like that be my guide, and then really do the math there.
Yeah.
And decide if what it's worth.
Right. And the whole thing is like, I mean, there's plenty of guys, you included. You're not, I mean, you like doing your own thing.
Yep.
Right. And to us, though, I feel like you and I, we are friends, and there's things like, man, it'd be a lot of fun to hunt with you, you know? But at the end of the day, like, there's plenty of guys that come up to me and say, hey, man, I'm really looking to do a hunt with you. And, you know, especially like, let's just say some industry people that we know, you know, like in our friend, I'm like, dude, you don't need me. I mean, like, I'll help line you out, you know, tell you where to go maybe or something. I mean, I'm not just going to tell everyone where to go. Right. But in terms of like, if I realize that these guys are responsible outdoorsmen that
experienced,
very experienced, then, you know, I'll try to get them helped out, because it's at the end of the day, for one person to pay $10,500, it's not for everyone. Right. And there's plenty of guys that I know that want to be on their own. And they want to hunt on their own, like a lot of the Alaska residents.
For sure.
I mean, they don't. I've had Alaska residents call me and say, "Hey, can you take me?" I'm like, "No, why? Like, you could do it. Give me a break."
But at some point, it is nice to go out with someone with experience for the first time, and then go back years later.
I have some people that just book hunts because they want to hear all my different voices. You know,
it's true. They just want to hang out with Cole.
Yeah.
But
no, I mean, and I have developed those relationships with people that, like, most of my hunters I go with, I know very well. Or, like, I knew their friend really, really well. Like, man, he said to go with you. You're a lot of fun to be with. And plus, the other things you have to understand, let's just say your hunter is pretty knowledgeable, but you really want to learn.
Right.
You're not trying to learn the area.
Yeah,
You're really wanting to learn from these guides and outfitters.
No, I feel like
I've traveled all over the world in search of learning from guides and outfitters.
Yeah.
Learning from the outfitter, see what kind of camp he's got, learning from his guides, how they track animals.
Yep.
I love that. Yep. I'm not that guy that wants to just show up in the middle of anywhere. I mean, Remy likes going doing his own thing. he likes getting, and I could do it, but me being a guide and outfitter, if I can afford that hunt, I'm looking at it's education. The whole adventure is education for me.
Absolutely.
And so that's what people have to understand. I guarantee, that's one thing I guarantee. When you go off of a hunt with me, I mean, you're involved. Like, you are not sitting on the sideline. You're helping me set up the tent. You're helping me get stuff situated. If I feel like you're capable, you may go set up the cot that I have, and it's really hard to set up. And if you pass that test, wow, you're pretty impressive. But, you know, it's like Michael was helping us cook, you know, at night while we were busy dealing with meat and everything. Like, and we're dealing with capes, and hunters are watching me learn how to turn the eyes, ears, nose, lips, seeing how salting works.
Yes.
You know, learning all of these things. And guess what? You're going to be a better outdoorsman after you should be, at least.
Yeah.
And you know what? Guess what? And maybe it's only just a few things that you learn, and maybe you come out of it being some of your guides may not be that great, but realistically, I guarantee you're going to learn something, good, bad, or different. You're going to learn, and at the end of the day, more time in the woods, especially with like a professional. It could be the guy you're going on a DIY with, your dad, your uncle, your whoever it may be that is very, very experienced. You're going to learn from them.
Absolutely.
But especially someone who's done it and is a professional at it, you're going to learn. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you and I love to go play softball and I hang out with you playing softball and you're telling me stuff, or baseball, and then we go out and hang out with, you know, Nolan Ryan or something, or you know, all these other, I can't even think of any baseball players' names. But no, it's like you're going to learn from a professional. Right, and it's going to be a whole different ball game. It's going to open up your eyes to how a professional who's very experienced and just does it. I don't have a full season with this customer.
Right.
I have 10 days or 5 days.
All of
to get
this
it done.
makes it much more, having gone with you, I feel like I can grab a map, go, okay, this is the kind of area I'd like to hit.
Yeah.
Talk to some folks and set up my own hunt and go do it.
Yeah.
It's definitely far less intimidating to go do it with the help of a guide initially. And then, like I said before, sometimes it's not worth all that hassle if you have the funds to spare.
Right.
So, now, on the same note, where it's sort of this DIY thing, I'm intrigued by the caribou, the reindeer that are on Kodiak Island. That also, those you don't need a tag.
No.
Or you need a tag. You do not need a guide.
You don't need a guide. Yeah. Yeah. It's all over Alaska. You don't have to have a guide to hunt caribou. You know, Kodiak, they're only in certain places. South end of the island mainly and whatnot. But it's a pretty hit or miss hunt.
I was going to say, how does that hunt stack up?
They roam around quite a bit. And is there certain areas that they typically hang out in? Sure. But what I would say to guys, if you're planning on going down there hitting them, plan on a deer hunt. And if you get a caribou, hey, great. You got to get the tag.
Go there for the Sitka blacktail.
Go there for the blacktail.
And then get a caribou while you're
and they're not massive. They're pretty... is there some good size ones? I've shot a few of them over the years, but I don't know. I kind of look at them as like a Texas whitetail, meaning like kind of spindly racks.
Right.
Not, I've
they
seen
have
some
a reindeer.
They have more of a reindeer look to them, but
which is just a domesticated caribou.
Correct.
At some point,
domestic
in some sense.
And I don't know where exactly they brought them over from exactly. But when they brought them over there, they brought
basically
them over
got out of the
for the natives, to harvest and eat to round up and harvest each year and whatnot. And I believe, and maybe your viewers could correct me, but I think they were brought in so that the natives could harvest them and also sell the meat.
And I Googled it quite a bit and looked it up. And, dude, there's some nice ones there coming from me who's never killed a caribou of any kind. And
oh, sure.
It's real
especially
expensive
when you're looking at doing a combo hunt.
Right. So, and we saw caribou when we were there.
They're not typically there, but they weren't of any size, but yeah.
Yeah. And so but to make that it's intriguing. It's an intriguing hunt from a DIY perspective.
Oh, sure,
from a guy, it's like,
Well, it's cool because when you go into a place and you're seeing all the different types of animals, it's great other than just seeing the one species you're hunting.
We just interviewed Adam Greentree about bison.
Who?
That one guy says nar.
Oh yeah, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
So we were we interviewed him, and we were talking to him about his buffalo that he shot in Oregon.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where they're not supposed to be there. There's no real rules around them. It's roaming around, and he went and shot this old buffalo that just kind of is out there.
Yeah.
They just have easily, since that's the only buffalo that they saw the whole time, they could have, and they hunted 6 or 7 days, 8 days, they could have just as easily gone there and seen zero.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Sure.
But man seems awful lucky to me.
He gets lucky.
It's like, I don't think it's karma because he's not that nice.
Just good, clean living.
It's not that nice.
He's got a nice wife, though. Nice wife.
Seriously, though, that's how I kind of picture this caribou hunt. You could go and say, I'm going to go hunt caribou on Kodiak and see none.
Oh, sure. Yep. And the other thing is, guys will try to...
But the Sitka blacktail being able to combo it, that makes it a little intriguing, right?
Yeah, it does. Guys will try to fly around and look for them and all that stuff, and I prefer just fly in and go hunt. You know what I mean? But sometimes, even if guys are flying around, they still can't find them some of the time.
It's hard to see.
Yeah,
from there, and if the weather is nasty, you're just barely you're lucky getting into your spot.
Exactly.
Let alone flying around.
Yeah. It's just plan on a deer hunt. If they're there, they're there. If they're not, they're not.
Yeah.
You're still having a great time.
And there's nobody that guides for, like you guide for Sitka blacktails. There's no one that's guiding for reindeer.
Once again, those are guide outfitter areas on refuge, and you'd have to contact those outfitters to do that with a guided hunt. So and I personally don't know any of them.
Gotcha.
Can't even tell you a name. But
Do you recommend
once again,
any mainland guys for caribou?
I
Do some research.
Yeah, I would just do. You can probably call Fish and Game. You can look up some of your forums. Alaska Professional Hunters. I always encourage people. I'm a member of the Alaska Professional Hunters, and I always encourage folks, if you're going to look into an outfitter, make sure he is a part of the Alaska Professional Hunters Association. Okay, that means that they are actually carrying and do want to know
legal.
what's coming down the pipe. And you don't have to be part of the of Alaska Professional Hunters.
Okay.
It's just these are the guys who are really caring, who are showing up, working on all the issues at the meetings. You can call those office there, talk with Deb, or executive director. She's really good about maybe saying, okay, so if you'd like to go to this area, this is the outfitter. If you'd like to go to that area, this is the outfitter. And really good about explaining where or who are in these areas, to get you more information.
Sweet. Well, I hope that was useful for people. I think it was. It
was a
me.
lot of.
I had a lot of
rat holes
answered. It just kind of gets the juices flowing, gives people some ideas and.
Well, and I'm a little off the cuff here. If I mention anything wrong, you guys can blow me up over it. So
and people will. Cole?
Yeah, I'm used to it.
People will, because
I'm used to it.
That's how the world is today.
Yeah, I think they can tell I respond back pretty quickly to them when I'm out for weeks at a time. So.
No, thanks for coming on the podcast,
yeah,
man.
Thank you,
It's
man.
always a pleasure. And, man, look at that handsome rogue up here on the screen. We just put a little Cole Kramer up there just to see. Wow, look at the water splashing for those that are watching on YouTube. It's amazing.
That was like a water app. I don't even remember being a creek or anything there. Interesting.
No, seriously, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, buddy.
Folks, if you've got any questions, send them to Cole, COLE_AK_Kramer on Instagram. Slip into his DMs. He always likes that. And then your website is
Cole. Oh, wait, no. What is my website? AdventureMountainHunts.com.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
AdventureMountainHunts.com.
Yeah, your best just to get a hold of me on Instagram or whatnot. And also on my website, I do have an email on there that you can look at and contact me on that.
Perfect. Thanks, Cole.
Yep.
Stay gritty.